Alright, this is my attempt for another league speedrun walkthrough. In this case, we're just playing our one drop out on turn 1 and evidently up against mono green. We're going pretty aggro in this one, just going to fire off a couple spells at their face, and it seems to be working out well. We play another one drop into 2 drop, getting a pretty quick clock on them. Just swing everything. They block. Who cares? Karn is pretty good. They get Pestilent Cauldron and kill the Mana Dork. Fire up the Den, attack with everything that's lethal. Okay, game 2, we got a pretty good opener. Multiple ways to kill an elf and multiple 1-drops, so can't complain about that. It actually is pretty good blowout if they go double elf into your End the Festivities or whatever. Just kind of try to maximize the damage up front, keep swinging, kill the Kiora if it's efficient. It's hard to say sometimes when it's correct to kill Kiora, but it usually is if you're able to. Here we're just kind of maximizing our upfront damage, put them down to 4. Basically within 2 spells we can get them dead. They flip their battle, but don't mind that too badly. Here we're just going to roast the elf because the mana is actually more important than a random 4/3 or whatever, and they scoop. Okay, game 1, not the greatest hand, but we have 1 into 2, and we have a couple burn spells, so never going to ship that back. You always lead with your dens when they come in untapped, of course. Their best draws typically involve Wolf of the Haven, but again, we're just going to swing as much as we can. Trying to maximize damage here. It's going to be tough to win when they can trade with their elf and just eat something with Pelucranos. They get Haywire Might, which is usually a pretty good option for them. Yeah, not even going to bother firing the Den because it's actually neutral or negative damage. Sometimes it just pays to do the math on how much damage you're getting through, and if they cast an early restorative burst, then you're pretty much screwed. That's why I conceded. Okay, game 2 on the play. Got pretty much an ideal hand, except we just need to draw a wizard, and that's usually fine. Like you have 12-ish wizards, you're gonna draw them, and there we go. Maximize damage. No reason to play the Skullsar yet. Again, if they had Wolflo there, it was going to be really good for them, but as is, we're just going to fire off a bunch of lightning bolts at their face with prowess creatures, and it's going to be a pretty easy way to close this game out. Alright, game 3 on the draw. Got a pretty good hand, way to kill an elf, some follow-up. You really need the way to kill the elf, otherwise you basically have to mulligan. They just get out under you faster than you can handle. Maximize damage by just going at their face as much as possible. Kiora, if they don't have like a double land producer, is usually pretty good. We're just going to keep killing their elf. We get to double Pyromancer off, light up the stage, and kill the Kiora that way, which keeps them off of mana. Um, they get to land a Pelucranos, but it's not going to matter that much. We just kind of punch in, play a big dude, and then they have to play something relevant. Looks like it's going to be another Kiora. Yeah, against mono green, you basically just have to keep away, at least on the draw, to kill an elf turn 1 and apply some pressure afterwards. This way we put them to 1, and we have a land to activate Ramming Up Ruins, so even if they hit 2 bangers off of Storm the Festival, doesn't matter that much. We're just going to kill them. That's the game. Alright, we're on the play this time with a pretty ideal hand, honestly. Double Kumano and a 1-drop kind of sets you up perfectly. I don't know what this opponent was playing, but when you're leaning on Wishing Well against like 10 damage on turn 3, it's obviously not looking that good. It's important in these type of spots to think about what your opponent could have. Like if they had led on a, the 1/1 affinity for artifacts or whatever, it would have been tougher. But even then, when they're just playing blue lands, they can't really sweep you. Like they might have a counter spell, which you can't play around at that point. But still, just when you think they might have Make Disappear or something, it's not that hard to play around it. Especially when you have creatures that just get the prowess triggers anyway. So for instance, this way, we're just going to stomp. They could have another Make Disappear, but it's not that big a deal because we're getting our 2 damage off the triggers anyway. And especially with Bone Crusher, like you can think about next turn I'll play it and it'll be a 4/3. But if I stomp right now, that's 2 off the stomp and 2 prowess triggers. That's 4 damage anyway, so you're not in a rush to just cast it as a creature. They're playing some weird stuff and they just concede here, so. Game 2 on the draw against Mono Blue Bounce. Chandra, Torch of Defiance is a card you're pretty happy to see in your opener in these kind of grindier matchups. It's kind of an underappreciated card along with Hathret. As long as you have one of each, like you're pretty likely to see one of your more expensive bangers. And even if they try to play something like Aether Channeler, I mean, obviously we're flooding out a little bit here, but it's not that big a deal. We have Sokenzan and Chandra. We know we're going to be able to cast something, and then we draw Light Up the Stage. Like now we can theoretically Chandra and, well, now that he bounced it, we can play 2 1-drops. The non-hasty ones, you really hold your Monastery Swiftspear for after. In this case, it's not that big a deal. I mean, you just minus on that, bolt them and light up the stage into 2 more burn spells, and make sure you kill the creature before they can block something that does more. If they prevent more damage with blocking than you would by burning it, then do that. All right, this is match 4 on the draw against a good player in Oath McNamara. We don't really have a 1-drop we can play, but they're just on a tap land, so it's not the biggest deal. And usually in these type of matchups, Bone Crusher Giant is pretty good, along with Pyromancer. Like, it's just a guaranteed 2 most of the time if it resolves. One thing we could have done is kept a third land instead of, bottom a spell instead of bottoming the third land. Especially when they play something like Chrome Host Seed Shark. It's kind of hard to get through that. So we just got to be on the burn plan. They play an Archfiend, and we swing into it. They actually tank for a while and then do block. I'll just play another Pyromancer. It doesn't really matter. Now, if we had that third land, we would be in a much better spot, but as it is, we can't do anything. Okay, game 2 on the play. Pretty much an ideal hand, Kumano into Swiftspear plus another 1-drop. Most likely you want to lead on the Swiftspear when you have a Kumano trigger. Very rarely, like in this instance, I'm actually leading on the Lava Runner, just in case, like, if they have a Fatal Push, I'd rather them kill that and still get one in. But 90% of the time, it's still going to be better to do it the other way. Here, we actually Wizard Lightning the Jace and play with fire upstairs to get the Scry, because it's more valuable than 1 damage, but it actually kind of comes back to bite us. Like, we're going to fire this off either way. They go to 1, like we could have killed them that turn. But sometimes the Scry seems a little more appealing. And game 3 on the draw. We have a couple of our sideboard cards in our opening hand, feeling pretty good. Always lead on Kumano. It's just the best setup. And when they leave in Thoughtseize, you can kind of feel a little bit of relief. Like, it's not ideal, but at least they're losing some tempo and life in the process. Like, their Thoughtseizing away, we can just hard cast Bone Crusher Giant, swing in for 2. Not too concerned. If we draw another land off the top, we get Hazoret immediately. But as it is, we swing both. They don't block, and we're going to hold up a couple instance-speed burn spells. If they played alliteration, we could, like, shock or double shock their target. And it looks like they're going to Meat Hook Massacre, which is going to kill 2 of our guys, but when you do the math, it's not really worth it to do anything about that. We're just going to scry a land to the top, shock them, and swing for lethal with Hazoret. Okay, so this is round 5 for the trophy match. We have a good hand on the draw against what's evidently Boros Convoke. We always lead with Kumano pretty much. We have 2 1-drops to follow it up as they play a Legion's Landing into a Thraben Inspector. Tough matchup in Convoke, honestly, but we do have the tools to win. Obviously, it gets harder when, like, game 1 is tough. Post sideboard is not that tough once you get some of the other stuff involved. Obviously, we lose here because we're just facing like 10, 11 damage face up. This is an amazing hand in this matchup, honestly. You have double Kumano and a play with fire. No way to kill a big Convoke guy, but that doesn't really matter at this point, especially when they don't have a 1-drop. We're just going to develop our board a bit. They usually, if they pass on turn 2, that means they have the Resolute Reinforcements. But that's okay. We'll just swing 2, play a Soulscar Mage with a counter on it. And Soulscar is really good with Red Cap melee, because even if you do kill it, no matter what color it is, when you have a Soulscar Mage, it's not being dealt damage. So you get to remove it without sacrificing a land. In this case, we're just going to go to our turn, upkeep play with fire, ensure that we hit something relevant. In case I'm running volley and Wizards lightning their face, we're going to get in for a big chunk of damage, and they scoop. And game 3 on the draw against Boros Convoke. Not really where you want to be, but with a decent hand like this, I mean, we know we have the tools to deal with a Convoke creature or a small creature. They have a Forge Devil, which can be good in this matchup, but when we attack with a couple Swift Spears and just play another Lava Runner, they're going really wide, playing the Veteran Loxodon. In this case, we do have the way to kill it and just try to maximize our damage, stomping the face, get them down to 5. And now it's kind of like we have to chump block until we can find a way to burn them out. So they attack for some damage. I'm just going to get the damage up to their face. This way, if we draw an untapped land or any kind of shock or 3 damage spell, they're just dead. They play another Venerated Loxodon, and the stomp comes off the top for game, set, match, and trophy.